Hi, welcome. Welcome to part two. Part two of two. I hope y'all are doing well. I'm gonna say hi in the chat box. Hello, who's here? And where you logging in from? I know that's kind of a cheesy question, but it's kind of a cool thing to see, like all the ways that technology brings us together. The magic of all that. And welcome. I hope you're doing well. I'm gonna just vamp here for like a minute or two, and then we'll get started. What is good? What's? Here's another one. What's great about your life today? I heart these check-in questions. You're so welcome, Kate. Hi, Sarah. Prashant, what's up? Why, hello. I like this. So what's great about your life today? Let me share what's great about my life today. I'm doing work that I love. I'm actually not doing, I'm like finding balance. I think that I don't feel overworked, which is nice. I think in years past, I wouldn't have been able to say the same. So I'm grateful that I'm finding balance in my life, a little bit of slowness. I get to work from home, which is kind of cool. My new house that I just moved into has air conditioning, which is kind of amazing. It's like really changing my life. I know it's like environmentally not very efficient, but I'm really grateful for that. Those are three things. Ganesh, experiencing the calm before the storm. Benjamin, I will get to you that question soon. And thanks, Uriah, for the happy early birthday. Your teacher is helping you prep for college using your videos. Cool. Joanna, which videos? I'd be curious to hear. And Joanna's garden is thriving. I'm so glad. Discovered a new hobby. Awesome. Let me share my screen. I'll go away, or not go away completely. I'll just become tiny in your screen. Hi. This is what I'm calling the crash course in supplemental essays, because we don't have time to cover all of them. There are many, especially if you're applying to highly selective schools. But I hope to give you some tips and some perspective on a couple of the major ones. So let's get into it. And thanks for joining me again. This is me. This is what I look like in the depths of essay season. This is actually the San Diego Library. Here's some facts about me. I went to these places and studied these things. I've spent like 13 years doing this. We found out last year that that our website, though that I started back in, I guess, 2012, it's got over 1 million unique visitors a year. That's kind of cool. Free stuff. I've got a bunch of free stuff on the website. If you were here 2 days ago, you saw me mention that. And I've got this cool scholarship that if you're a student who identifies as low income and you'd like some free essay help, go to collegeessayguide.com/matchletters, and Erica, who runs that program, will hook you up with a counselor for free, for real. And if you're a counselor who would like to be connected with low-income students, sign up. It's like a 1-to-1 ratio. And then here's my gratuitous kid pick for the day. It's a different one from 2 days ago. This is Zola fake pouting. So in past webinars, I've kind of done this huge buffet style thing where I just like fire hosed, that's a weird image, folks with resources. This is my favorite buffet. This is the Bellagio buffet. This was me last year, the new college essay guy. So me for 2019 is a little more refined. So check this out. This is me in 2019. I've been, trying to just choose a few dishes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think 9 dishes counts as a few. Hopefully today will feel more like a tasting menu than a buffet. Not that buffets anything wrong with them. So on the menu for today, we've got how to save, I think you can save at least 20 hours on your supplemental essays, depending on what schools you're applying to. I'm going to share with you, I'll spend a lot of our time, probably like 20 minutes, talking about the Why Us essay, because it's pretty popular for highly selective schools. If you're on this webinar, you're probably writing a Why Us essay, or your students are. The activities list is super important, and I'm going to share with you 3 tips. 3 really good tips for improving it. Stuff that you probably haven't heard about before. And then we'll talk about what goes in your additional info section, because that's sometimes a mystery, and how to misuse it. And then I'll give just a minute and a half on my video course that's online all the time. and we'll do Q&A. We had a really full Q&A last time, so I hope we have another. All right, follow me here. Open up another tab and type in tinyurl.com/collegeessayguy9519. That's the date today. Let me share with you what well, you can do that. I'll just type it in. Tiny www, I'll put it in the chat box, url.com/collegeessayguy9519. Okay, I'm going to make this a sticky message at the top of the screen because folks will be asking, how do I find that thing? And that's how you find that thing. And I'm going to switch screens. Please hold. We'll be right with you. Your call is important to us. Don't you? Doesn't that always bug you when they say your call is important to us and then you're like, well, why do you have me on hold? All right, this is 14 pages of stuff. Don't scroll down to the very bottom just yet. Stay with me. I've done spaces in the pages so that I can somewhat, manage the control the experience. This is a tasting menu, y'all. Taste these things one at a time. Okay, so let's get right into it. The first resource, I like getting right into it with just 5 minutes into the session. That makes me feel good. So this first resource is called the Supplemental Essay Tracker Spreadsheet. So if you click this link, it's going to take you to this post that is going to basically contextualize this in the scheme of your college application. So what this post is that I'm sharing with you right now is about how do you figure out which schools to apply to? Like, how do you figure out what you're looking for? There's some really great resources for just figuring out in like 10 minutes, what am I looking for in a college? And then how many colleges should I apply to? Where do I find it? So tons and tons of resources. I wanted to show this as kind of the background. And then once you get here for how do I choose the right college, this is what I call my ultimate college list research tracker. And it looks like this. So on this doc, which I'll also just paste into your chat box so you have it. Here it is a spreadsheet that to me is the secret to saving a ton of time. There's another secret, which I'm going to share with you in a second. But basically it involves this. Listing, once you've done your research, as described on this other resource, going and figuring out, okay, what are the schools that I have less than a 10% chance of getting into? Call those your wildcard schools, because you're probably not getting in, right? Just mathematically speaking. And then what are the reach schools, which is to say, low chance of acceptance, meaning like 10 to 20%. And don't worry, there's a way to find that out on the doc that I shared. What are the maybe schools? And most importantly, what are the likely schools? I want you to have 8 first choices. How many schools? 8 to 10. But I want you to have enough schools that you have in the maybe and likely range and that you're excited about. And how do you get excited about schools? You do research. Sometimes we visit, but there are lots of cool online ways to research, including, online tours. Campusreel.org is one of my favorite ones now, REEL. You can, if you want to use this, fill it in. There's a little another separate post that I've got on how to find out how much money costs, how much money costs, how much does money cost, how much college costs. You can fill in, what is the average GPA, average ACT score. You won't need to use all this, okay? This is like much more than you'll probably want to fill in. Some student is looking at this and going like, oh my gosh, thank you so much, finally. Other students are like, I'm not touching that. Here's the important part, the essay tracker. You basically look up, usually via the Common App, the essays you need to write, and you paste them in here. Put the word limit, put the topic chosen if you know what it is, and just fill them all out here. If you want to make a copy of this, just go on the top left corner, go to File, make a copy, and then boom, you can create your own. Now, why should you do this? Well, because it's going to help you write what I call a super essay. Now, what do I mean by a super essay? Take a look at these prompts. So Michigan, let's say you're applying to these schools, Michigan, Duke, and a school that's asking you to talk about something that's meaningful to you. Like, I don't know, Stanford. I'm not saying that you should only apply to highly selective schools because these would all be probably in the reach category or wildcard. But Michigan asks, everyone belongs to many different communities and or groups defined by geography, religion, they name a bunch of things. The key part of the prompt is choose one of the communities to which you belong and describe that community and your place within it. Okay, so that's Michigan's prompt. And let's say you're mulling this over and you're thinking like, what is a community that I'm a part of? Go to your extracurricular activities. Could it be that one of your extracurricular activities is a community? If so, it could be a potential thing you could use for that prompt. Then you go to Duke's essay. And it's let's say for example you pick, I don't know, basketball. I could say that I'm part of the basketball community, or in theater I was part of the theater community. Duke University seeks a talented, engaged student body that embodies the wide range of human experience. If you'd like to share a perspective you bring or experiences you've had to help us understand you better, we encourage you to do so. Now, let's say you're writing that essay for Michigan on theater or whatever it is, and you're like, did this help me shape a perspective that could help them understand me better? Yeah, maybe so. And then you've got this third prompt. Tell us about something that's meaningful to you and why. Well, if you spend a lot of time doing theater, is it meaningful to you? For sure. Or basketball. You see where I'm going with this? This is what I call the Venn diagram of the super essay. You take something like describe a community you belong to and your place within it, and share a perspective you bring and something that's meaningful to you and why. You put all three of them at the top of your Google Doc when you're writing your essay, and you brainstorm a super essay, which is to say an essay that could work for all three of these. Now, why is that going to help you? Because, my friends, once you list all of your essays that you're writing, and there will be, if you're applying to like 8 schools, there might be 8 essays. Say each school has, one supplemental essay. Oh, let me rewind for a second. You might be like, what is he talking about, supplemental essays? Sorry. You'll apply through the Common App usually with your main personal statement, which is what I talked about 2 days ago. And that goes to most of the schools you're applying to. And then individual schools have these extra essays, the Why Us essay, the Why Major essay, or this is like from USC, that's what's something about yourself that's essential to understanding you. Well, hey, that's another one that we could put on I want to write my theater or basketball essay, because that's the essential understanding me. The point here is that once you start to type in all of the different, put in all the prompts, you'll see that you have like 20 essays to write. But if you're smart, and if you start to double and triple these prompts, you play what I call the overlapping prompt game, you can start to reuse essays. Will they know? No, how would they? Now, obviously, if you're not answering the prompt and it sounds like it's for another prompt, then yes, they will know. So don't just like take this and just like send your essay to another school. Make sure that you're brainstorming it ahead of time. All right, so that's my first bit of advice. Here's a quick example. When I joined the Durham Youth Commission, a group of students chosen to represent youth interests within local government, I met Miles. Miles told me his cousin's body had been stuffed into the trunk of a car after he was killed by a gang. After that, my notion of normal would never be the same. That, my friends, is called a hook. A melting pot of ideologies, skins, socioeconomic classes, faiths, and educations, the DYC is a unique collaborative enterprise. Each member adds to our community's network of stories that weave, bump, and diverge in unexpected ways. Miles talked about his cousin's broken body. Whitnessa educated us about food deserts. Supervisor Evelyn Scott explained that girls get 10-day school suspensions for simply stepping on another student's sneakers. And I shared how my family's blending of Jewish tradition and Chinese culture bridges disparate worlds. As a person who was born in Tokyo, lived in London, and grew up in the South, I realized difference doesn't have to be an obstacle to understanding. Nice insight. My ability to listen empathetically helped us envision multifaceted solutions to issues facing 21st century youth. So what? My experience in the space of affirmation and engagement has made me a more thoughtful person and listener. So here's what she's learned and some of the values she's developed. I want to continue this effort and be the woman who both expands perspectives and takes action after hearing people's stories. That was a common theme in her essay. She had a podcast and loved storytelling. Reconciling disparate lifestyles and backgrounds in the commission has prepared me to become a compassionate leader, eager to both expand perspectives and take collaborative action. So this is a student who took my course last year and who basically a year ago today, she was in your position. She's like, I don't know what, actually she worked over the summer. So it wasn't a year, it was like 14 months ago. She's like, I don't know what to write about. And I was like, tell you about this super essay thing. And she wrote this one and used this for a bunch of different schools. It worked out really well for her. So what are we doing here? Again, brainstorm by putting the prompts at the top of the doc, ones that you think might go together. Now, it could be that you put like 6 or 8, you get really ambitious. And for some of the prompts, the essay doesn't quite work. You have to tweak them a little bit. But in terms of the major topics, that's what I want you to be thinking about. What are the major topics that you want to be reusing? It's a good idea to be thinking about this while you're writing your personal statement, because if you know that Durham Youth Commission or whatever your thing is, basketball or theater is going to go in this super essay, which is going to go to maybe a lot of your schools, then you don't necessarily have to cover it. In fact, you probably shouldn't cover it too much in depth in your personal statement. Now, some of you are hearing this and going, uh-oh, I've already written about my major thing in my personal statement. I would consider turning that into a super essay. What? You mean rewrite? I think, yeah. I mean, I find that sometimes students write about an extracurricular activity really well, but it doesn't always make a great personal statement. Or it's worse, it snatches a slot from your, one of your major supplemental essays. So just consider it. I'm not saying just because you wrote about an extracurricular activity, you definitely need to rewrite your personal statement. But consider if schools are already going to be getting that information. Now, if not, let's say you've written about basketball or theater in your personal statement. Do you have a second part of you, something related to service or something else that could answer multiple prompts? Some of the prompts are going to be really hard to double. Certain schools like UChicago or University of Virginia, some of those are really tough to reuse. All right, moving on, the why us essay. Well, I need to go faster. So what shouldn't you do? You shouldn't talk about the school's size, location, reputation, and the weather. Why? Because that's what everybody talks about. Instead, imagine yourself on a third date and the person sitting across from you, glowy-eyed, looks at you and is like, so what do you like about me? And their eyes are glowing, so this is a good moment. And you say, because you're hot. And it's like, what? Now, don't just tell the person they're hot, especially, or because you have don't talk about their size, location, reputation, or the weather. Wait, what? What I mean by this is there are certain things that, especially if the person is good looking, that they've been told all the time, but it doesn't really give a sense of how you and that person or that school are going to be a great fit. So instead, you're going to need to do some research. Now, this is where the metaphor kind of falls apart, and figure out what are a series of things that link you and this school, aka this person that you want to be with. Because the thesis of your why us is you and me are a great fit. Now, how do you do this? Here are 3 different approaches. First is what I call the basic solid why us essay. Read the beginning of this. Mark Twain was a steamboat pilot. Agatha Christie was a nurse. Robert Frost was a light bulb filament changer. The best writers do not only write beautifully, but also integrate their personal experiences and knowledge outside the world of literature. By combining the study of literature, media, and perhaps law, I believe the University of Michigan will provide the education necessary for me to evolve as a journalist. So, a lot going on there that's working really well, I think. Notice the hook is really short. Some students spend a lot of time on their setup. No, this is like 40 words. Right after that, we get a clear sense of what the thesis is. Whereas I don't think you need a thesis for your personal statement, a why us I think can benefit from a thesis. And here it is. By combining the study of A, B, and C, I think Michigan's going to be the best place for me to study X. Okay. Now, what's nice about the A, B, and C, literature, media, and law, is that this is the paragraph on literature. Here's a paragraph on media, and here's one on law. Boring? Maybe. Clear? Yes. This is why it's the basic solid one. But within these paragraphs, you got to get specific. A journalist can't reach the peak of his craft if his knowledge of literature and critical thinking skills are weak. Which is why, and by the way, he didn't bold these. I'm just bolding these so that you can see like what he's emphasizing in the paragraphs. I look forward to courses such as this particular course and this other particular course. Why? Now, some students just say, I want to take this course, but they don't really say why. And so I believe these will provide me with a firm basis in journalistic writing technique and improve my abilities to write analytically and develop well-supported arguments. All right, this is like a classic why us, great sentence. You have A and B, which connects to my desire for, this for that, or will help me level up in these particular ways. Furthermore, next sentence, the professional writing course will teach me what? How to write in a concise, straightforward style, a skill vital to a journalist. Schools know that you're basically trying to steal what they've got to offer. They want to make sure that if you've done your research, so you know what they've got to offer. Okay? I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but know that this one is about media studies and this one is about law. And then he wraps up with, I want to give back too. So here are some community service opportunities that I could get involved with. Here's the basic outline. Clear thesis that names the academic area you want to pursue if you know. If you don't know, I think you can pick a placeholder or pick 3 things that you're interested in studying of all the many things. And chart the path of the essay if you like. And then give your main reason, a few details, next main reason, a few details, etc. And then an ending that maybe comes back to either giving back or somehow wraps it up. The ending to me for these is not as important as like the meat and potatoes, the middle of the essay. Sorry to all you vegetarians out there. All right. Oh, I'm deleting this because this was something that I borrowed from my book, but I'm not going to be covering that right now. All right. This is the crash course, y'all. Approach 2, the 3 to 5 unique offerings strategy. This is my favorite approach. And what he's done, here's the spoiler. He's given 4 unique offerings that connect him to Cornell, to the school. Okay, so here we go. Whenever I have time on my hands, he says, I hook myself up to my EEG and analyze my brainwaves. Or if I'm feeling slightly less adventurous, I'm reading about the latest neuroscience trends in Science Direct or NCBI PubMed. Notice he started with himself a little bit more. I want to spend my life studying, understanding, and helping to fix the human brain. So this is kind of like his personal mission statement, which is nice. I bought my EEG online 2 years ago for about $150 and have used it to compare the beneficial effects of both circadian and non-circadian sleep. By the way, this is what we call geeky language. I talked about this on the last session. By analyzing the number of clear peaks in a 3-minute interval of a theta wave. Okay, we get it. You love it. But just counting the peaks isn't the best way to measure the benefits. I look forward to what? Let's talk about Cornell, shall we? I want to get a deeper understanding of the fundamentals of neurophysiology, plus, little joke, work with better equipment, in courses like Principles of Neurophysiology. So here's what you have to offer. Great. So he's doing something similar, but watch this. As someone who's long been passionate about neurotechnology, the fact that Cornell is unique in offering classes devoted specifically to the field is important to me. I'm marking this 1, because this is the first time where he mentions something that really sets Cornell apart. Cornell is unique in offering classes devoted specifically to neurophysiology. So he's not only setting himself apart now with his awesome EEG opening, but he's setting Cornell apart among the schools that he's interested in. I'd also like to be able to contribute my experiences with neurotechnology to support cutting-edge research in Cornell's brand new NeuroNext Hub. Cool. What's nice about this is that you probably won't find this sentence in another student's essay. And if you want to take things to the next level, like he's doing here, see if your sentences are original. In other words, could somebody else have written this sentence? If so, you might consider editing or cutting. I'd love to work with Dr. Chris Hsu in expanding the current 3-photon microscope to be applied on various animal models. I also look forward to helping Dr. Chris Schaefer, whose research on deep neural activity is not being done anywhere else in the world. Awesome. There's the second instance where he's naming a thing that makes Cornell unique. I freak out at the possibility of helping him develop a tool to look at multiple brain areas at the same time. I'm going to fast forward a little bit. You can read this later if you like. And he talks about going and visiting and sitting in on this class, which is cool. You know, he said her animations of neurotransmitters, crossing a synapse and new synapses, forming neuron clusters, kept her students engaged. Whoops, sorry. It just totally went away. I hit the wrong button. There's like this weird Google Docs glitch where sometimes if you hit the wrong button, it'll just go away. Okay, it's back. He says, kept her students engaged in a way I have not seen in any other classrooms. So here's another little moment of what sets Cornell apart. He visited campus. He talks a lot about classical languages in this paragraph. Why? Because then he says, Cornell is also the only university I'm interested in that offers a speaking course in Latin, conversational Latin. Okay, you sold me. I get that so what's the difference between this approach and the other one is that the other approach is great and gets tons of specifics, but when I look more closely, academic augmentation, could I take that at another school? Yeah, maybe. Professional writing? Yeah, maybe. Could I switch these out with other things? Probably. So even though these reasons are really good, and by the way, can be used for other schools, you can just switch out the courses. What's nice, although it's difficult to find, is 3 to 5 things that set the school apart from other schools you're applying to. I think that really bumps things up a level, in my humble opinion. How do you find these? Research, research, research. If you Google college essay guy, why us essay, you'll see a little thing that's got a bunch of resources. Researching resources. Say that 5 times fast. You know the hardest thing to say fast? Girl gargoyle, guy gargoyle. Try that right now on your own. Right? Okay. But this is the third approach, and it's really hard to do. And I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it because I want to make sure that I want to make sure I spend a little bit of time on the activities list and additional info section because everybody's going to be doing that. Very few people are going to be attempting this strategy. I don't even think it's necessarily the best strategy. But what it is it's focusing on one value in the essay. And it's not for every school necessarily. So Bowden, for example, asks students to, reflecting on their own interest, comment on one of the following. And they name 3 different possibilities: intellectual engagement, the common good, and connection to place. So 3 different values. Now this student happened to want to study environmental science, so connection to place, he was intimately linked to this. So instead of doing the approach that I've suggested, he took a little different one. He basically wrote a story. Now, check this out. Again, this is hard to do, so I'm not necessarily saying this is better. Just want to make sure. I just definitely think it's harder to do. On the first dawn of the summer, I found myself in a familiar place, sitting awkwardly in the back of a crowded bus full of rowdy 12-year-olds. But this time around, I wasn't the shy new kid at school, a position I knew all too well. I was the teacher, implementing a middle school aquatic ecology curriculum I developed the year before. As New Jersey's Passaic River appeared on the horizon, I tightened the red laces on my Merrill hiking boots and checked my bag. Clipboards, lesson plans, and a new water testing kit. You feel like this is like a totally different feel? He's just telling us a story. Wait, what does this have to do with connection to place? Wait for it. For the entire day, I watched as 25 young minds tested the Passaic River's water. Using the river as a natural learning lab, I taught them about pollution and industrialization, urban designs, and remediation strategies. Some geeky language there. That summer, through my work in environmental education, I discovered the power of place. Tears. I tear up reading that. I realized that in a changing world, places really are the best storytellers. By tracking the Passaic's pollution levels, we toured the tales of its waters, beginning with its use by the Lenape Native Americans, to its unjust usurpation by European hegemons, to the Vietnam War, during which tons of Agent Orange were dumped recklessly. At Bowdoin, I'll encounter this again. By the way, that's the first time he's mentioned the school, and he's almost done with the essay. I find myself doing the very thing I was teaching, investigating the rich stories behind a place. As part of my major in Earth and Oceanographic Science, I blissfully get lost on Orr's Island, researching everything from the historical ecology to the changing geography of the Maine coastline, and I can't wait. It feels like eating great chocolate or sipping fine wine reading this. So the student who wrote this, it'll break your heart to hear this, but totally did not end up, I think got into Bowdoin, but didn't end up there, ended up at a different school. But if I read that and I'm the rep, I'm like, wow, this kid gets the essence of connection to place. And if that's important to the school, it's kind of like, imagine if you're sitting across from that person on the third date and they're like, so why are we a good match? And you told them this story that was like intimately linked to a value that you know is intimately linked to them. Like just the glistening look in their eyes when just hearing you tell this story. Again, it's hard to pull off and you got to have the right story. And you still got to be demonstrating all the things that I mentioned on the first webinar, which is like core values, insight, some vulnerability. There's some in here too, and craft. And this is really well crafted. This has got the 4 qualities of, I think, a great personal statement. And again, he's putting all of his chips in this one value basket. So again, is this better? Not necessarily. I think for many students, the approaches that I've suggested above are going to be better, actually. Because I think it's really hard to do the other one. I know I've said that like 6 times. But start with the basic solid YS essay. Okay? Start with a simple, here, what do I want to study and what are some of the main things? If you can, find unique offerings that are particular to the school. Okay? And then if you want to try this alternate approach, or there's like another side of yourself that you want to show, or you think this school warrants it, you might try this strategy. Or try none of these and just do something else and send me your brilliant essay and I will be like, oh, here's a 4th approach. But these are 3 approaches that I like. Okay. Page 11 of 14. Activities list. You got about 12 minutes before Q&A. So why should you spend 30 minutes up-leveling this? Because I think that's about what it takes to up-level one with the tools I'm about to give you. Because I think it can make a huge difference in your application. I think it really is. This is a section, and reps have said this to me too, that students sometimes kind of skip over, or they only put a little bit of time into. So why does it matter? For something like art, let's say a student has done art, and they describe it as like, I created art and organized a club. It's like, I don't really get a sense of it. You got only 150 characters, so you really got to make use of them. So it might be that you're the founder of the Art Honors Society. Oh, okay, you're the founder? Cool. I might not have known that if you hadn't told me. And what did you do? Well, I organized and ran meetings, set up field trips, brainstormed and created group art activities, wrote and sent letters to news members. Oh, cool, it's a newsletter to members. That gives me a better sense of like all your activities and also different things that you might be good at. One of the things I said 2 days ago is like, what you're trying to communicate in your application is, I'm going to be an awesome college student. And how do you do that? By demonstrating skills, qualities, values, and interests. And notice the skills, qualities, and values that are in just this short description here. So how do you do this? This is like, I'm going to share this with you, and only like 5% of you are actually going to do this. but I think it can make the difference in your application, or in your activities list, sorry. Maybe your application, who knows? So you put your activity up here, whatever it is, and you make a list, like a bullet point list of what you did. And it might be like, I organized my meetings, I set up field trips, like all of those things might be in the what I did. Then ask yourself, what problems did I solve? Well, let's say our members didn't feel like they really connected to one another, or we were kind of struggling to keep people engaged. Well, what did you do about it? I started a newsletter. Oh, cool. That could go in there too. Wrote and sent newsletter to members. What problems did you solve within the club? Was there a problem that you were addressing within the community? Maybe there weren't enough creative opportunities at school. You were filling a void. And by the way, the reason I'm giving you this exercise now is that I think this is a great brainstorming exercise for your extracurricular activity essay, which I don't have time to get to today, but this is an exercise that I recommend for that. What problems were you solving or working to solve? What lessons did you learn? And I love that values exercise, which is the one we talked about last time, for getting into what are the different things that you learned? What impact did you have? This is really especially important if you're applying to the University of California schools, but you can use numbers to say these things. Like membership grew from 3 members to 8 members. That's cool. We raised not just money, but we raised $1,200 for these particular folks. And how did you apply what you learned? You may not have room for this to go into your activities list, but this is just a great one to think about for other essays. How did you take the lessons from football or from the Durham Youth Commission or whatever it is and apply it elsewhere? Because that can lead to like a really interesting just paragraph that like gives us a sense of how this worked on you, how the activity cooked you, I like to say. All right, scrolling down. Here's an example of this, filling this out and doing a nice job. And this maybe takes you 20 minutes, maybe a half hour, but by the time you do this, you're gonna not only have a really great I don't think you should do a half hour for every single activity. I think you should do a half hour for all of your activities if you're doing the activities list, right? So like spend like 2 to 3 minutes per activity thinking about these questions. And then if you are brainstorming like an essay on the Chinese dance club, let's say that's a potential super topic, I always like to have my students fill in one of these BBS exercises, not always, but a lot of the time, so that they can figure out what the story is. Because oftentimes students will launch into a draft, I think, before they're ready. It's kind of like starting cooking something in the kitchen without having all your ingredients. And it's like, these pancakes taste okay, but they might have been better with a little bit of, I don't know, an egg. I don't think you need eggs for pancakes. That's a bad example. But there could be ingredients that could just really help bring more to the essay. And by brainstorming, by doing quality brainstorming, I think that's not even pre-work. Like that is the actual work of the writing itself. Sometimes students are so focused on like the words and they don't have all the ideas. My friend Rob says you've got like your words muscles and your ideas muscles. And if you just keep working on your words muscles, it's kind of like my friend, whom I won't name, he used to only work out the top half of his body and his like legs were really skinny. Not that he would ever watch this webinar, but that's what happens if you're only focusing on like how nice the words sound. It could be that you need a stronger idea. The ideas are the foundation. Ooh, I just connected that metaphor, like the legs of the essay. Now imagining your essay has legs. All right. Oh, actually, it kind of does. You could metaphorically. Oh, this idea has legs. Okay, not what I meant. Next, give your activities list a verb makeover. So if let's say your example is like you're writing about debate and the before version is like, we debated topics and attended tournaments and research topics. You notice the repetition there? Well, if it's debate, first of all, we know that you debated and you attended tournaments. I hope so. I mean, I hope you guys weren't sitting around just debating each other, like maybe meeting some other folks. Once you give it a verb makeover, it might be that I lead research and case writing. Notice that strong, I lead. Mentor younger debate students, organize mock debates, host an annual debate tournament, see additional info for awards. By the way, this is so much, I can't even put it all here. So stronger verbs. What are stronger verbs? They're more specific. You could say you taught, but did you coach, mentor, train, or did you demystify? Be careful. When students read this, sometimes I can tell they've read this if they use the word demystify. You probably won't use the word demystify in your activities lists, but I'm just trying to invite you to think creatively here. A stronger verb provides more information. So yeah, you organized it, but did you arrange it or catalog or compile or did you systematize? And it just sounds better. The word mediate is kind of cool, or publicize, or to administer. or plagiarize. I'm just kidding. Don't say that you plagiarized something. So how do you up-level? I have this whole big list. I'm not going to, this is the only thing that I'm not going to share with you because it's in my course, but this is my epic list of activities list verbs. Some of you are like screenshotting this right now. But essentially, you can be resourceful and find more verbs if you don't want to do the course. And by the way, the courses pay what you can, so scan it for values. So once you've done this, take a look at this example. So this is a student, just so it's in quotes, you know that she wrote this as a description. So this student was responsible for taking minutes, updating the calendar and active member list, communicating with advisors, acting as liaison to our local chapter. Cool. Okay. So what are the values that are coming through here? Well, she was responsible for taking minutes, so responsibility. And she updated the calendar, so she's kind of organized. So cool. So I get that she's responsible and organized, and then communicating with advisors. So there's like some kind of like leadership there. Acting as liaison to our local chapter. This kind of repeats because like, if she's communicating with advisors, we kind of get that she's, you know, that she's like able to communicate with adults. So it could be that she could cut one of these. And like now that I look at this, and I'm getting super nitpicky, you can decide how nitpicky you want to be. But like responsible for taking minutes shows that she's kind of organized already. Updating calendar and active member list. Maybe there's something else that could go here. Again, this is only if, not again, because I didn't say this, I just thought it. Only if the student has more stuff to write about it. If this is a pretty good description, and if I read this, and most readers would be like, oh yeah, awesome. But if you do want to really see what is my application revealing, in particular through my activities list description, what values are coming through? Could there be a little bit more variety? Okay. That's what I got on the activities list. Additional info in 4 minutes. Here are some things that you might include in your additional info section. So this is that space on the Common App that's like 650 words of whatever you want, okay? Sometimes, as like the student above hinted, this see additional info for awards, there's stuff that you can't fit in your activities list description. So it could be that you just do a little short bullet pointed, you know, a little, not even a paragraph, just bullet points of the other stuff that just didn't fit there. So some students have extra activities that they couldn't fit in there. Some students have additional awards that couldn't fit. Some need to explain an acronym, you know, and because the acronym is too long for the 150 character description, that could go there. If there are any red flags, which is like you dropped a sport or you got a bad grade, explain it. Again, factual, short. Here's an example. I dropped soccer and cross country after sophomore year due to chronic back problems. My back healed by junior year, and I returned to water polo as an assistant coach, but chose not to return to cross country so I could focus on academics and get a job to help pay bills at home. Great. Same goes with health stuff. Focus on information, impact, and what you did about it. And that's what this essay does, it's not even an essay, it's like 54 words. In 54 words, it is kind of a mini essay actually. There's information, here's the thing, and here's why I dropped it. It was a health thing, right? Here's what I did about it. I focused on academics. You know, I came back as an assistant coach, I focused on academics. And so I get a complete sense that helps me understand, that's why those sports disappeared. Same goes for grades too, you know, health stuff connected to your grades. If you haven't been super involved in extracurricular activities, like let's say you have 0 extracurricular activities listed, they might wonder, like, why no extracurricular activities? And there might be a very good reason. It could be that you were, for example, working to help support your family, or it could be that you just live really far from where all the activities happen, or you need to take the bus home. And as one student that I knew, like the activities happened at a certain hour, and if you took those activities, you would have to take the public bus, and your neighborhood was kind of dangerous. So that would be something to explain. So work those details in. Physical or learning disabilities or differences. This is so that you don't have to write about it in your personal statement. So there was a student a couple years ago, for example, who had a hearing, he was like couldn't hear in one ear, but it didn't have a huge impact on him. So he wanted to note it because it was a thing for him, and he wanted to make sure that the school was aware. Other students, you know, choose to write about those things for their personal statement. But if you feel like I don't want to really have to talk about that in my personal statement, you can just do, again, a factual description. Or sometimes students mention a learning difference or disability in their personal statement, and they want to put the facts or the details in their additional info section. So like, here are the details of when I was diagnosed and what it means for me, and you know what I've done about it, and etc. If you got a family member that's on disability or a parent on unemployment, mention that too. These are, I'm not going through many of these. I'll share with you a resource that has more of these. Don't include a second personal statement. So, if schools want a long essay, they're going to ask for it. So that's my personal opinion. Other counselors will disagree and they'll be like, yeah, if you got a second essay, go for it. But I feel like if they wanted it, they'd ask for it. If you got a B plus and you have otherwise A's, don't explain why you got the B plus, because it might show qualities that aren't necessarily, good qualities. I just don't want them to think you're like overly obsessed with academics. And you don't need to, if you've done a good job in your activities list, just repeat everything like with a resume, because you created the resume and you feel like it's a waste. So if you click here, okay, so that's the additional info section. If you click here, here's the 90-second PSA for my course. It'll open up this link, which is the course I mentioned. It's online. You can watch it anywhere. Let me show you what's in this. There are tons of video lessons, like almost 3 dozen, a bunch of sample essays. It works for over 300 colleges. Here's what's in it. In the first lesson, basically, I'm going to help set you up with really great brainstorming exercises so you can kind of see the scope of all the things that you might put in your application. I've got another super essay, and there's like a step-by-step guide for writing that. A bunch more on the activities list and the additional info section, some more YS essays with some step-by-step guides. The extracurricular essay is basically that essay that you'll write on theater or basketball or whatever it is that often ends up being a super essay. And I think there's a different approach based on whether you faced a challenge through that or not. And I call those like the Elon Musk exercise, and I have something called the uncommon connections exercise. And it's the key, I think, to standing out on that extracurricular essay, because there's so many students writing about basketball and so many writing about debate. How do you really stand out? That's something that I talk about there. And then there are the other supplements. I've got a bunch of stuff on the Stanford essays and if you're asked to write the diversity essay or the why major. And then there's like the short answers. Let's see, what else? The 150 word essay. And then finally, how do you make sure your application is actually doing its job? And then I've got like recorded sessions that I did earlier in the summer. So there's a little link that's going to pop up that'll give folks info about that. And there's like a 50% off thing that's happening. And remember, and it says it on there are pay what you can spots. So I'd love for you to take advantage of that if you feel like it. All right, Q&A time. That was about 90 seconds, I think. There we go. Hi, how's it going? All right, let me scroll to the bottom. So actually, let me pause for a minute, because you probably got questions, but if I start throwing the information at you, you're not going to be able to think of your questions. So let me take a sip from my Pixar mug. And what questions do you have? Type them in the chat box. It tastes amazing. The fourth thing that I'm celebrating today. I'm scrolling from the bottom. I'm just scrolling up. Laura, one of my counselors told me that all the text in your essays has to be one big block or paragraph. Is that accurate, or can you split up paragraphs as shown in the doc you just used? I've never heard that, Laura. I would be surprised if you had to do one big block. So I'm pretty sure, and you can contact the Common App to find out, or you can, at least you could in past years, you can kind of do a printed version. I recommend this actually. When you're done with your application, do a printout of your Common App to just look and see that your formatting is working. Don't worry too much about it, because they're going to be reading pretty fast, but Joanna answered that question as well. I should probably read from the top down. What if we aren't sure about our future major? How would we approach the YS? So the short answer to this, Joanna, is you can kind of pick a placeholder, and you can pick one thing that you're interested in that you can make the argument for, or you can pick 3 things. So like, let's say you want to study writing, and that sounds interesting to you, and you're also interested in history, and you're kind of into, I don't know, business. There are probably different things at that school that would allow you to explore those. And by things, I mean like courses, opportunities, professors, etc. Ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum. Stanford is a YS essay that's 50 words. It is kind of a YS essay. Thanks for noticing that, Benjamin. I'm considering talking about a degree program they have or about a certain clubs I'd get involved in, but don't have space for both. What should I do? I would pick one. So if there's a particular, and again, I'll go back to my advice from the YS. If there's something that sets Stanford apart among all the schools you're applying to, I would pick that. So if there are certain clubs, are they unique clubs? Maybe you could mention one and then boom. Like what the question he's talking about is, what are you looking forward to experiencing at Stanford? Which, by the way, most students say fountain hopping and the roundabouts. So I wouldn't recommend saying those. But I like the way you're thinking, Benjamin. Just pick one. And it might be that it's connected to either probably another essay. So let's say, for example, you're really interested in, podcasting. I mentioned it earlier. It could be that you're interested in the Stanford Story Project, because that's something that, it's all about storytelling and podcasting and the importance of story in our lives. Hasi, supplemental essays are usually 250 words. Are they? These essays feel like they're 650. Are there colleges who ask to write whole essays on the YS? There are. So supplemental essays aren't usually 250 words. Some are, for sure. But some are 650, some are 750, or at least you have 750 words of space. I'm thinking of like Penn State or Pitt, So, I don't know. Write accordingly. Oh, Devin answered that one. How many activities should we fill in? Do you only list ones that are more robust? Good question, Kate. Different counselors have different views on this. Some counselors say, less is more. In fact, most, if you ask counselors, would say less is more. And some say more is more. Some say less is more, but they really mean more is more. So the average, as of 2016, the average Common App, even though they have 10 blanks, had, I think, 4.5 activities listed. So just under 5. So don't feel like you have to use all the spaces. Now, having said that, it just depends on how meaningful it was to you and what kind of person you are. If you're the kind of person who's like, I just want them to know all about me, and I feel like if I don't put all the things in, I might regret it, then put the things and with your descriptions justify why you're listing those things. If you're like, you know what, I just want to list the 2 or 3 that are most important to me and say why they're the most important to you, that's fine too. Students are accepted every year to wonderful schools with both approaches. So I'm not actually answering your question. I'm saying that either can work. Joanna happens to be of the more, less is more. Will you keep it up? That's a logistic question. Devin will answer that. Thesaurus time. Are we not allowed to put another essay in this section? Not sure what you mean. Tell me again what you mean by that, Benjamin. Oh, I see what you mean in the additional info. Got it. Do I find the debate is too common? It depends on what else you have to write about, Ruby. So if like debate is your thing, write about debate. I mean, it depends on how you write about it, obviously. I wouldn't necessarily suggest it for a personal statement topic. Now, having said that, in my first book, my favorite essay there is like the with debate essay. You don't have to buy the book. You can just Google debate essay, college essay guide to read it. But I don't know. I think it's pretty common. I would, if you've got time and you do, I would suggest trying some different things, and you save debate for a potential super topic to show another side to you. Do you think writing about my exchange year should be my main Common App essay or a supplemental essay? Again, it depends on, if that's like your deepest story, then maybe. But a lot of students write about it. So here's my feeling about these common topics, like a mission trip or like a move or a student exchange year. I don't think that's as common. That's probably like in the top 20, but not in the top 5. Like mission trip, musical instrument, sport, common extracurricular activity like debate. Those are probably like in the top 5. No evidence to support that, by the way, just based on what I've read. So what I say to these is like, don't not write about it. Like don't not write about debate or your exchange year because other people are writing about it. It's kind of like you're trying to do the same dive as the other diver is doing. and as many divers have done before. So actually, let me put it this way. It's kind of like trying, oh, this is a good metaphor. It's kind of like trying to sing My Funny Valentine or Hallelujah. That's probably a good example. Like Jeff, so this is the Leonard Cohen song. Jeff Buckley already like crushed Hallelujah. And if you try to sing Hallelujah, it's like it might be like a decent rendition of Hallelujah, but you're going to have to do something different with it. So to me, the key difference with these extracurricular essays, and really a common app, is like an essay that blends in is usually on a common topic, makes common connections, which is to say, I'm talking about basketball, discipline, hard work, perseverance, and uses common language. Like teamwork really makes the dream work. Whereas a standout essay often chooses an uncommon topic, makes uncommon connections, and uses uncommon language. So an example of that was like the My Desk essay. Now, the one that I read in the last webinar, has no one written an essay about their desk? No, of course. Many students have written about their desk in their room. It's kind of a variation on this. So that's not what makes that essay special. What makes it special is the uncommon connections, the way that he's able to talk about different insights and parts of his life inside it. And then the uncommon language comes from talking about I was a scrawny 20-year-old, what did I say, 12-year-old man. Like that kind of funny stuff. That's what helps them stand out. Now, in the second essay we read, that was an incredibly uncommon topic. You don't have many students writing about A, escaping war, and B, escaping war and then being seen as the villain in that war. Like that's bonkers and helps that essay stand out. So in some cases it's the topic, but in other cases, like the My Desk, it's not the topic, like My Desk. That's not an outstanding topic. It's what you're doing with it. So in short, again, it depends. That's what everybody says, by the way, whenever you ask an admissions question. What of this information are we allowed to share with students as is? Anything you like, Carrie. If you've done a good job on your personal statement activities list, does it look bad to not write an additional info essay? Sue, just to be clear, I'm not saying you should write an essay in the additional info section. I said don't write an essay. So no, it does not look bad. You can leave the additional info section blank. There's a list, and you can Google College Essay Guide additional info section, and there's a list of some more things that you can put in there. What are recommendations for the supplementals that are 50 words or less? Get specific and get weird with it, Sabrina. By that I mean anything that you think could be in someone else's essay, cut it, right? So if it's that Stanford one that's like, what would you do with an extra hour in the day? Don't say sleep, because everybody's going to say sleep, right? If it says, what are the top 5 adjectives? What are the what are the 5 adjectives to describe yourself? Get weird. I mean, if you're saying like hardworking and passionate, it's like, yeah, the last 8 people that I read also used those words. Get weird with it. Does having a leadership position in band make it easier to write an extracurricular essay? Francisco, I'm going to recommend that you do that BBS exercise. That BBS exercise is going to make it easier to write an extracurricular essay. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, just watch the recording. Joanna says, I don't have much to discuss regarding extracurriculars. How can I make the few activities that I am engaged in detailed and engaging? Same thing I said to Francisco. Do that BBS exercise. Spend a half hour thinking about those columns and those questions that I asked. And if you're like, what is he talking about? Rewind. What should I write in my Y major essay if I haven't decided? Will an essay on undecided major be bad? I don't think that it's bad. It's just harder to write. So I would say, Hasi, pick 2 things that you're interested in, or maybe 3 at the most. It's going to be pretty short. But, as a placeholder, here are some potential majors that I'm considering, and what is it about each one? The key for me to the Y major essay is like, you're going to kind of do a little movie version of the moments that have led you to being interested in the thing or the things that you're interested in. So let's say it's 150 words. I think, I'm thinking of a couple different ones, but some are 150, some are 250. There's one for Columbia that's 300. But if you split it among 2 or 3 different majors, then it's going to be like, for a 300-word essay, it's going to be like 150 or like, 100 words each. So it just ends up, you just have to get really specific with why you want to study the things. If I'm starting a club this year, do I still mention it? I put the papers into my school. It depends. Like if you start it and you do stuff, yeah, by the time you apply, for sure, mention it and say what you've done. Should I include names of professors in the YS? Yes. Loam. I'm a creative writer and I always have a habit of wanting to format my essay like a prose piece, but then answering the question. Would you recommend the third kind of essay for me because of this? I would recommend doing the research for the second kind of essay, Lum, and then if you find there's a path towards the third one, potentially. But again, I know I've said this 6 times already, but it's really hard to pull off that third one. But if you feel like you want to try it, go for it. The key is, are they getting a nice balance of you in that YS and them? Because students oftentimes will do all of them. It's like, here's why Michigan is so awesome. And the people who are reading this are like, yeah, we know. We're the ones who end up, who most of the time are telling people why Michigan's awesome. That's what like 40% of their job is. For YS essays, can we talk about the school's unique community or special events that only that specific campus provides? That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about for the Cornell example that I gave. Also, I'm an overwriter. I tend to go way over word count. Sometimes the 250-word essays go 650. Is that bad? What do you think I'm going to say? Did a lot of your students usually start over? Oh, I see what you're asking. Way over word count, then trim me down? Yeah. And what I would say do, Lum, is once you've overwritten it, go back, rather than cutting it from the 650, go back and create a new outline. I call this creating a reverse outline. I don't know why it's reverse. It's really just creating an outline. But I guess you're reverse engineering your outline because you're like writing a bunch of stuff and then going back and analyzing, okay, what are the different pieces of this? Like, what are the different points that I'm making here? And then how do I make each point more succinctly? The best way to trim, I think, is doing that to get from 650 to 250. How can I show my strengths and values in the supplemental essay without being off topic? I'm not sure I can answer that in 5 minutes. Let me see if I can give you a tip for that. It depends on the essay. That's why I'm having trouble answering this. Is there a particular essay that you want me to know or to talk about? Probably the BB's exercise is going to help you with most of the extracurricular activities if you're writing on one of those. But it's going to be different for the YS, different for the Y major, different from the Chicago essays. So sorry, I'm not answering that. First of all, happy birthday. You're welcome. Thanks, Keto. Can we change our major from one school to the other if they are best major administrator in the major? Yeah. Find out. Make sure that you know where you can change majors, because for some schools it's relatively easy, and some it's not. And some it's easy. Like, for example, at Northwestern, I could change from like philosophy to psychology, but it would be harder to change from like journalism to theater, because those are separate schools. If you're applying to a school within the university in the YSSA, do you recommend mainly talking about why you want to be in that school's major or program, or can you talk about why you love the university and what it has to offer? I would do it in that order, Jenna. First, here's the specific thing that I'm into in the program, but not just that, here's some other things. Would you include internships in the activities list or elsewhere? As long as it's in your application, Tegan. I think activities list is a great place to put that, but if you feel like there's like more that you want to say, then you can't fit in the 150 characters, that could go additional info. I graduated high school 10 years ago. Should I put my activities from back then? That's a great question. It would depend. So this is probably complicated because there's probably lots of other questions that I could ask that would get more information. Find an ally, Angel. If you're applying as a freshman, I think I'm trying to point you to a resource, somebody who could help you through this. If, for example, so this is my first tip, if you identify as low income, you can contact through the Match Sliders program and get a counselor who's going to help you with this question and the other questions you might have. If you aren't low income, you can still email me through the site, and Alex, who works with me, can potentially connect you with a counselor who might be able to help answer your questions. I'm trying to think if somebody will do it for free. Reach out to me and maybe we can connect you with somebody who can help you, because there are probably lots of different circumstances. And maybe you already have a counselor you're working with and you won't need to. Would a part-time job be appropriate to put in the activities section? For sure. What about internships? Yes. Can YSSAs show an interest in the college referring to its courses as Professor Yes. Totally. Would it look superficial if you fill out all 10 spaces? I met with a student yesterday who had all the 10 spaces filled and had 12 separate ones in the additional info. And I was like, I thought he made a mistake. And he's like, no, I just have that many activities. And it didn't look superficial. It looked like he just didn't sleep. Would it make you seem uncommitted? I don't think so. Some students are just incredibly involved, we'll say. Can I write about a moment in my childhood that has prompted a value that still affects me to this day for one of my supplements? Sure. Weary of addressing learning disability on competitive applications. What is the best way to handle? Inclined to not address as I think it would be a detriment. That's true in many cases, I think, Carol. It's such a personal question. And I think for every student who talks about a learning disability or difference, I tell them to talk to their counselors, because it could be that that's being addressed somewhere in the application already, meaning it could be like through a counselor recommendation letter. The question for me is like, has it impacted you in an important way? And does it feel worth including? It's complicated. So find a counselor and talk to them about it, because I can't give and so I think I'm on the same page with you, Carol, is that it's addressing that on competitive applications. Sometimes it can, I think, sorry, I'm kind of speaking inside to Carol. Let me speak to everybody. In some cases, and you'll see this in the news media, there have been situations where students talking about mental health issues has meant their application goes to like a special reader. And so the application's going to get flagged. And so that's made some students not want to put that in their application. And this is such a wrought issue. My sense is that I would say talk to someone more about this before you decide how to address the learning difference or disability. That's my qualified it depends answer with 0 time left in this webinar. Let's do one more question. Can I connect the major I want to study with the topic I want to write about in my Common App essay? You totally can. If you want a guide for that, college, just Google College Essay Guide Type A essay. That's the, actually, or Type B. It'll tell you how to do that. Okay? You're doing great. You're here. You're finding resources. You're asking questions. I'm grateful. I'm glad to be here. Glad to connect with you all. And you'll find, if you've got more questions, you'll probably find it on the website. If you go to like collegeessayguy.com and then just type in that little search bar, or just Google my name plus the thing that you're trying to find out about. Teacher recommendations, interviews, demonstrated interest. Should I tour? All that kind of stuff. We put it on there and put it on the podcast. So I hope these resources serve. I wish you the best. And I hope that some of you take advantage of the course, if that's in the cards for you. Again, there are pay we can spots, which means money is not a barrier for anyone. I'd rather you use the resources than not. Okay? Take a breath. You got this. See you soon.